In the fall of 1870, in San Francisco's Chinatown, a baby was born in a bedroom above his father's grocery store. Wong Kim Ark was one of only 518 American-born Chinese people in the country at the time of his birth, according to the 1870 census. His parents had immigrated to the so-called Gold Mountain, San Francisco, to seek work. After spending some time in San Francisco following his birth, the family packed up and moved back to China. While no documentation shows us explicitly why they left, here's some context. In 1877, San Francisco's Chinatown had been overrun by a mob of white men who killed Chinese people, destroyed businesses, and torched buildings. A few years later, the U.S. Congress would enact the Chinese Exclusion Act, barring Chinese laborers from entering the country. Wong Kim Ark spent his childhood going back and forth from the U.S. and China. In 1895, when Wong was in his 20s, he attempted to return to San Francisco after marrying a woman in China, but he was denied re-entry to the United States because of the Chinese Exclusion Act. So he spent 4 months detained on a steamship in San Francisco Bay, just miles from his own birthplace, while the U.S. government insisted he was not a citizen. Now again, Wong Kim Ark was born in the United States after the passage of the 14th Amendment, which made him a citizen by birthright. The 14th Amendment reads in part, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside, end quote. Pretty simple amendment. Wong Kim Ark was quite straightforwardly a U.S. citizen under the law. So he took his denial of citizenship to court in San Francisco, but the DA there argued that Wong, who was born in the U.S. to parents who were Chinese citizens, was, quote, subject to the jurisdiction of another country, China. However, when the case reached the Supreme Court, the justices sided with Wong Kim Ark 6-2. Wong and his legal representation knew their best chance was to tie his own fate to the many thousands of white children of immigrants who, according to the court's final decision, quote, have always been considered and treated as citizens of the United States, end quote. Now, a little bit of history. The 14th Amendment was ratified in 1868 to address this country's original sin of slavery, to reverse previous law and court precedent that denied the citizenship and basic humanity of nearly 4 million formerly enslaved people. But it was Wong's case that made clear that the 14th Amendment applied to almost all people born on American soil, regardless of race or ancestry. The reason I say almost is that the 14th Amendment did not apply to Native Americans until the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924. Wong Kim Ark's victory was not a given, though. As we mentioned, anti-Asian and specifically anti-Chinese sentiment was high when Wong fought his case. The very same Supreme Court had years earlier claimed a, quote, Oriental invasion was a menace to our civilization when upholding the Chinese Exclusion Act. But even in that climate, our constitutional principles shone through, which is why President-elect Donald Trump's crusade against birthright citizenship is so alarming. To remind you, this is what Trump told NBC's Kristen Welker in early December.
You promised to end birthright citizenship on day one. Is that still your plan?
Yeah, absolutely.
The 14th Amendment, though, says that, quote, all persons born in the United States are citizens. Can you get around the 14th Amendment with an executive action?
We're going to have to get a change. We'll maybe have to go back to the people, but we have to end it. We're the only country that has it, you know.
We are not the only country which has birthright citizenship. Excluding the United States, 32 countries have some form of it, but that's largely unimportant to Donald Trump, as is the long history of precedent that protects birthright citizenship in this country. If Trump does choose to act and is legally challenged, the case may wind up in front of a 6-3 conservative supermajority Supreme Court. We do not know how this new court would act. The text and history of birthright citizenship is clear. If you're born in this country, you're a citizen of this country. Establishing that principle and enshrining it in the Constitution was an integral part of repudiating this nation's history of slavery. To undermine the Constitution's guarantee of birthright citizenship in any way would be a return to some of our nation's darkest days and a surrender to the worst impulses in American history.